host, Ryan Miller, and for the past 15 years, I've helped hundreds of people to raise millions of dollars for their funds and for their startups. If you're serious about raising money, launching your business, or taking your life to the next level, this show will give you the answers so that you too can enjoy your pursuit of making billions. Let's get into it.
Are you an aspiring private equity or venture capital investor? Do you want to jump into buying and selling businesses? Well, if that's you, then I have a question for you. How is your due diligence process? Do you have a way to explore value creation or destruction from digital aspects of a business? Well, in this week's episode of Making Billions, I bring on my dear friend Antonella Pisani. Antonella is the founder and CEO of EyeFul Media. They work with private equity and venture capital investors to conduct digital due diligence on companies. So you're going to want to listen all the way to the end, where Antonella reveals some of the key areas to focus on, as well as how she saved a client from suffering a 40% decline in their potential investment. Buying companies, finding value from due diligence, and avoiding 40% losses are all critical skills we need in our pursuit of making billions. Here we go. Hey, welcome to another episode of Making Billions. I'm your host, Ryan Miller, and today I have my dear friend, Antonella Pisani. Antonella is the CEO and founder of EyeFul Media. Her company has been ranked in the Inc. 5000 as an elite digital marketing agency that conducts digital due diligence for private equity investors, just to help them complete their own due diligence on digital assets. So what this means is that Antonella and her team at EyeFul Media understand how to help you find the problems and the profits in any digital business that you want to buy. Antonella, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Ryan. It's been great getting to chat with you over the last few days, and looking forward to spending this afternoon with you.
Yeah, it's wonderful to have you. I mean, doing digital due diligence is phenomenal, and we're going to get into that. You're going to want to listen all the way to the end. I'm going to hopefully ask, if I ask nicely, maybe Antonella will share with us some of her secret sauce on how she helps people, and from all of her wisdom and insights over 26 years of doing this, she's really going to help us drill down on digital assets and how, not if you have one, how to get better, and if you don't have one, how to set it up correctly. But before we get into that, maybe you can walk us through a little bit. I mean, you've been doing this for a long time. Your wisdom is there, your experience is there, and your clientele is there. I would love to know, how did you become an expert in this field?
Yeah, for sure. It's been a long journey. So I got involved in digital super early, started building websites in 1996, pretty much when internet was in its infancy. And even before that, got involved with marketing back in high school. Was really, really fortunate and got to intern at Transworld Snowboarding Magazine as one of the interns working on an event for them, and got a lot of great marketing experience there. Fell in love with copywriting, had the opportunity to be in some of their magazines and things like that. And then, like I said, it was actually my work study job. I had no idea that was going to lead to a career in digital. And after that, had the opportunity to work for some great brands. So Pro Flowers, Guitar Center, JCPenney, Fossil, a really nice mix of kind of private companies, public companies, and then private equity backed as well, including some that are backed by folks like Bain Capital, Liberty Media, and other kind of top-notch organizations. That is cool.
Transworld Magazine, I remember reading that when I was a kid. I was obsessed with Transworld, Thrasher, and Guitar World Magazine. So those are guitars and skateboarding. That was so you were a little bit of the magic behind my joy as a younger man. And so where did it go from there?
Yeah, from there. So after a long career on the corporate side, I ended up taking a year off. I've been doing a lot of turnaround work, and anyone who's done that knows the intensity. So I ended up traveling and then got into consulting somewhat accidentally. A friend who owns a digital marketing agency here in town is on the advisory board of a company, and suggested I join them. So the last 6 years we've been building an agency. We've been in the top 11% of the Inc. 5000 list the last couple of years. We've been on Adweek's fastest growing agency list, came in at number 6, and number 5 is a women-led organization. All 100% off of word of mouth. So really a tremendous journey. We've got folks in about 16 states right now, over 20 cities. Really fortunate to be experiencing this kind of growth.
Yeah, beautiful. Well said. So here you are, you're hustling, you're building EyeFul Media, you're doing these wonderful things. You got private equity investors, venture capital people, all kinds of professionals that are saying, hey, I want to buy this thing, but I got to make sure that when I open the kimono, so to speak, and do I like what I see? And sometimes to the untrained eye, that's not always obvious. So you get called in from big investors who say, hey, can you take a look at this? You understand digital assets, SEO, all of these things. Is there value being created? Are they as good as they claim to be? All of these things that investors want to know. And so I'm just curious, do you have an example of maybe a company that you worked on, you did some due diligence, and maybe walk us through some of the results there?
Yeah, for sure. So we are really fortunate. We work with a number of big PE firms as well as some smaller guys as well. And they do bring us experience in. One of the things that's really unique about us as an agency is we only use experienced talent. So it's folks with an average of 13 years of experience. And so they trust our team. Obviously, anytime a PE person or investor in general is putting money into a company, like they need to know that they've got the right team on board. One of my favorite case studies, and I don't know if you want me to share my screen here.
Yeah, please. For those of you on YouTube, you're going to see a little bit of magic. For those of you who are listening, keep listening and then go to YouTube. But either way, yeah, please share.
Yeah, for sure. So we actually did a case study one on this. And I would say most of the time when we're digging in, like we find that it's primarily upside. But every once in a while, we find some things that concern us a little bit and we bring it to the PE firm and highlight some risk for them. So this one company we were looking at was really focused on organic search or SEO. So for those of you that aren't familiar with the terminology, it's really when you go to Google, typically you've got the paid ads up at the top, and then the majority of the page is organic search. You know, it was really interesting because when we first started looking at it, we were like, wow, these guys are really solid. They had very high domain authority, meaning that Google really respects the site. We had seen organic traffic climbing in a steady fashion. So that looked really good. We were seeing links from really reputable sources. So all of these things that on the surface looked awesome, right? And to the kind of untrained eye, you would think, okay, let's check this one off. It looks really good. But we kept digging deeper, just knowing the importance of these evaluations. And we found some things that concerned us that it was really, it's called anchor text, but really what it is the words that are being used when they link to your website. And most websites will see that the majority of their links tend to just use the brand name, the name of the site. So let's say you're Trans World Snowboarding. A lot of the links should say Trans World Snowboarding instead of like something very niche-y and specific. And so we saw a lot of these things that we flagged as a concern, just thinking that, because of the importance of organic search to the valuation, like it felt like something that could be penalized really quickly. And so, we saw some things in the data that just didn't feel great. We actually flagged it to the PE firm before we were fully done with the analysis because we wanted to make sure that they knew that we felt like there was some smoke there. And so this was one of the maybe like 2 or 3 deals that we've ever said, hey, look, I wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable pulling the trigger on this. And so we went back because, look, it's always scary looking at this and making a recommendation to maybe not invest in something. And so we actually went back just to see, like, did we make the right call? Because, you can lose sleep over that. And what we saw was actually that non-brand traffic, so meaning keywords that are more likely to drive new business, so anything outside of that brand term, it had actually dropped 40% or more since we had done the evaluation. So we felt like it was the right call. It was, it's always scary making that call, but we were really confident in our recommendation to them. So I think this is probably one of the most extreme cases that we've seen. But it shows how important it is to really dig below the surface, because that surface level data, like everything looked pretty phenomenal at the time.
Man, so I see a chart there. Where was it that you made the recommendation on this estimated traffic trend?
Yeah, so it was right around here. So it was kind of in this like, it was the last week, and then it just started downward slide.
So you were able to uncover certain things. So I'm just assuming, keep me honest. So you had a client, they approached you, and they said, hey, we're interested in this business. It probably, strategically and their thesis, everything seems to fit. We just got to make sure that there's value created, or at least the value we expect to be created is possible with this company. They call you in, special teams, you do your research and say, I don't think this is going to give you. Is that a pretty fair assessment how that went?
When we present findings to different firms, we're typically saying, hey, here's your top 5 upside items. Here's your top 5 risk items. They tend to balance each other out. More often than not, we're seeing upside. When there is that risk, they just want to know, like, how painful is it going to be to fix this?
Man, and you're able to do that. Almost like hiring a very thorough housing inspector if you're a home flipper to say, like, hey, like, I'm a home flipper. I'm not a construction person. But maybe I bring someone who just understands how the best in class is done. And that's, how close or how far away are we from that and what's going to be required. And then I'll decide whether I get, some type of consideration for those things. But either way, you got to do your due diligence. There's legal due diligence, there's financial due diligence. And in your case, there's also digital due diligence. So from all of your experience, Antonella, I'm just curious. I mean, thank you for sharing that story. You've done this, you've been doing this for more than 2 decades. What advice can you give our fans around the world that you can help them, maybe some areas of, say, where's value created or destroyed in these companies, some of the stuff that you look for? Maybe walk us through some of those hot tips that you've been able to find helpful for investors.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. My favorite little book is called The Go-Giver. I don't know if you've read that one, but it's all about creating value and giving value. And so happy to share a few different things. And these are just some of the things that we tend to look at pretty quickly. Because it's just enough below the surface, or it's just things that the PE firm needs to know about really quickly. One thing that surprises us is a lot of these companies, especially where they're a little bit still immature in marketing, they don't actually even own their Google Ads account. So they've hired an agency that set it up for them, but something in the contract is written that the agency actually owns the account. And the reason that that really matters is it kind of takes the power away from the client and the company. Because what happens is if they want to make a switch to a different agency to change out their partner, maybe they're not getting what they want from that agency, it's a little bit of a handcuff because now the new agency actually has to rebuild the entire account. You've lost the history, Google's history, right? What they've learned, especially if you're using any sort of algorithmic bidding, some of that logic, that all gets wiped out. And so that's one of those questions that firms should very quickly ask and understand if the company that they're evaluating actually owns their own data. It shocks me how often it comes up that they don't. And so I think that's a quick win.
Owning your own data is critical. So if you hire a third-party agency, just make sure in your contract that the ads belong to you, which is really not so much the account, but the data that gets generated within that account. You got to make sure that you are the rightful owner of that data. Is that?
Well, they want to own the account because what happens is if they switch agencies, the company can then just go and invite the new agency and the agency can just take over management and then they just remove the old agency partner. Otherwise, the whole thing needs to be recreated. So it is actually owning the account and making sure the billing is running through the client, not through the agency, so that they don't skip a beat if they want to make a change. So that's a big one. I would say on organic search is a huge channel for a lot of people, and it's one that is really important because it tends to blend down the customer acquisition costs. The better that the company is at organically acquiring traffic. A lot of times people are looking at things like keywords, percentage of traffic coming in from branded terms versus non-brand, which we talked about is kind of those keywords that people use when they don't know your business. They're just trying to find your service. So it tends to be new customers. Take a look at that data actually by page of entry where people are coming in. A lot of times what we'll see, and people get enamored by traffic numbers, but there's a lot of traffic that's like empty calories. And so what you'll see is sometimes a lot of traffic coming in on blog posts and things like that don't actually lead to sales. And so I really like slicing the data and looking at 100,000 visits, how much of that is coming in on pages that will actually have a chance to convert versus stuff that makes me feel really good because I'm getting traffic, but isn't really qualified. So that's another thing to make sure that you take a look at data at that level. I would say for, especially for e-commerce companies, one of the quick wins is often looking at the affiliate channel. For those of you that aren't familiar with the term affiliate, but it tends to be your coupon sites, things like that. That's a channel where if you're trying to find budget to invest in something else, something upper funnel, attracting new companies or new customers to your business, a lot of times that can be kind of cannibalistic. And what I mean by that is you guys have all done it. You get into a website, you put stuff in your shopping cart, you're ready to check out, and you see the little promo code button. And you go off and say, I'm going to go I want a better deal. Who doesn't want a better deal? So you go and find that promo code. What happens is affiliate sites will all of a sudden also launch a browser window that has the same website in it so that they can set a cookie. And so what's happening is now they're taking credit for the sale. Here's why that matters is you start not really understanding what is driving the sales. And so it can actually devalue things like paid search. So what you really want to look at is the difference between first click data and last click. And what that means is, most Google Analytics and a lot of web analytics platforms will use what's called last click or last touch attribution, which is, hey, the last thing that touched my customer before they converted wins, right? That doesn't mean it's the channel that actually introduced your client to the website. And so you want to look at that first click data, especially when trying to understand which affiliates are actually driving business to you versus just taking credit at the end. Because a lot of times you can free up some marketing budget and redeploy that and get a higher ROI on that. So that's another thing we tend to look at. And then last, and I think this one's, it still surprises me that a lot of companies don't do this. Whether you're e-commerce and have like a high price point or you're a B2B business, lead gen, a lot of businesses still sell through the phone, right? Especially if they're sales reps. We've seen some e-commerce businesses that still have 10 to 30% of their sales happening through phone because it's a complicated sale. It's a high price point. And a lot of folks are still not very good at attributing phone sales back to the marketing channel. So if you think about it this way, let's say you're running paid search ads and you're spending, $1,000, you're getting a 4-to-1 based on kind of that online sales data. Let's say 20% of your sales are coming in the phone. Like you want to know that and you want to attribute that value back to your paid search investment so you can invest more appropriately. So a lot of times that can actually unlock budget that's still very profitable, but isn't being spent because the company just doesn't really understand their ROI. And so there's a lot of solutions out there. One is called Invoca. Another one's called CallRail. So there's a lot of solutions there that you can track those phone sales back to a specific marketing channel, a campaign, a keyword, any sort of thing like that. And that can be a huge unlock for kind of growing a business once you acquire it. So it's a good question to ask when you're doing diligence is, hey, are you capturing phone sales or not? You don't need to get into the why, but it's often a quick win once the sale closes.
It really, a lot comes down from data, and based on that data, you can really drill down on where value is being created or destroyed. Back to the original, coming full circle on this moment. So as you can see, there is a lot of different areas that you can focus on. So before we wrap things up, is there any last minute comments or ways that people can reach out to you to connect with you?
Yeah, we'd love to help everyone out. I can share our website if that's okay. It's EyeFulMedia.com, which is EyeFulMedia.com. We work with PE firms and VCs in a lot of different ways. So sometimes it is the due diligence side. Sometimes it's needing a trusted partner to work with their portfolio companies. So we're able to partner with folks, sometimes even doing interviews of marketing personnel to make sure that the right team is on board. So there's a lot of different ways to partner.
Awesome. I love that. So as we wrap things up, just to summarize, when you're buying a digital company or investing in one, some of the key areas to look out for are paid search. Look at how that's being done. Do they own their own Google Ads account? Do they have they secured their own data? There's value in controlling all the data that comes around your activities. The other one is organic search. You got to see where the traffic is coming from, whether you do it or you hire someone like Antonella and her team to do that. Affiliates can be a good strategy, but it does need to be managed. It's good within a certain parameter, and it can be a little bit cannibalistic, as Antonella has taught us today. So affiliate marketing can be good. Just make sure that it is set up and structured in the way that does add value without destroying some of that. And then finally, if you have phone sales, if a lot of that company, either that you have or a company you want to buy has, do they have any of those phone rail systems where they can collect a lot of data? You do these things, and you too will be well on your way in your pursuit of making billions.
Wow, what a show. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. Now, if you haven't done so already, be sure to leave a comment and review on new ideas and guests you want me to bring on for future episodes. Plus, why don't you head over to YouTube and see extra takes while you get to know our guests even better. And make sure to come back for our next episode where we dive even deeper into the people, the process, and the perspectives of both investors and founders. Until then, my friends, stay hungry, focus on your goals, and keep grinding towards your dream of making billions.